Yeah, so
Thank you so much. Sorry.
yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I mean, when we met, it was sort of designed as an insight, if not a training, at least hopefully an insight into how to relate to the material aspect, so to say, of Tibetan Buddhist practice, with all the smells and the bells. Like, what do you do with them? So this time, I don't know.
So you're looking for suggestions from us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Dear Santa,
Right.
Maybe loving kindness again.
Hmm?
Maybe loving kindness again.
Well, that would be the general program, you know.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, you want to think about, like more specifically, like what corners of the Vajrayana ish. Although I just sort of want to repeat, I think this division of things into, Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana, it's a little artificial. As a lived experience, I think most Tibetan Buddhists don't, draw those lines. It's a good conceptual difference to, kind of understand in the mind, but when it's actually done, it's not done that way for the most part, except for how Trungpa Rinpoche created a curriculum for Westerners, and then many other Tibetan teachers who follow in the wake of Trungpa Rinpoche adopted that knowingly or unknowingly as the way to do it for Westerners.
I don't know if this is something that you teach, but I've been curious about learning more about the Chud practice a couple years now.
Yeah. Well, I've done programs like that. With that, it's accessorizing, coordination. You know, it's like walk, chew gum, skip, somersault,
Yeah.
all at the same time, and think deeply. Uh, the Tsadra Foundation sponsored the translation of an important volume on Jut, which is Machik's complete explanation of Jut, which contains many, many, many different texts in there. And there are things in there, that it's not so much about the, you know, how to drum and how to sing and what to visualize, but there are teachings from within that cycle that could be, you could take a closer look at. But then everybody needs that book, It's, well, I don't know, this thick or something like that.
I happen to know that Anam Tupten is working on a Chud book right now. Too. Probably.
Yeah, lots of, and then especially Tara Mandala Sutrimalyoni has developed programs of varying levels of relating to chit, from the general feeding your demons program that she has developed over the years to very traditional chit that her community practices as well.
No, Dr. Lai, I think about the comment you made, I think the last time you were with us, where you talked about everybody has their own stack of texts in front of them.
Right, right.
It's just such a unique thing about the Vajrayana that, in other, maybe it's not unique, but it does seem to me that people are sort of on, especially among our group, we all have our own little stack of
It is unique
texts in
to
front of us.
Tibetan Buddhism. In part, has to do with the sheer volume, quite literally 84,000.
Right.
If you do some sort of statistic of like how many Tibetans ever lived, from the time that we knew they were Tibetans until now, and
Yeah.
how many words they produced,
Mhm.
it easily, I think, is number one in the world. Some scholar has done that. How long these people have been literate, and an estimation of how many Tibetans ever lived from that point to now, and how much literatures, texts that have been generated. They're number one in the world.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then there is valleys and how and mountains, and how separated one valley is from another valley.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of diversity, tremendous diversity. So yeah, as I think I quoted Carl Brunholz,
Mhm.
the closest any Westerner comes to being a real Kempo. This is so he said, he made this comment. He said, everybody has a stack of texts that they perform, they practice on a regular. Regular could mean daily, could mean weekly, could mean monthly, but everybody has a stack where, if you sit in the room and you tell everyone, hey, open your stack, maybe half the stack we all have the same texts, even in the same monastery. Forget about here, all of you making connections to teachers from all over. Just the same monastery, about maybe half will have the same. You got this, you got this, you got this. Okay, good, 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 good. The other half, it's all over the map. You might have at some point met some other lama that you got a transmission and you feel connected to, that you have that, and you have that, you have that, and at different points of the training people all have different. Yeah, so that's
So you gave us last February, you gave us the Milarepa sadhana to do. And I
right.
guess that could have been one that we would all do together. It hasn't turned out that way. We haven't actually done that.
Right.
But it does seem like those are the choices. One is to give us another kind of thing, that practice that we do together. But another option might be to look at what are the, like the 7 branches prayer, or something that we're going to encounter wherever we go.
Right.
And, that
Right.
would be kind of universal in all the texts, in all the stacks. There's going to be
Yes.
this thing.
So for that, there will be so from that stack, right?
Yeah.
The second point.
Mhm.
Yeah, not the first point, Milarepa point, the second point you made. Then instantly I can think of beyond the sevenfold, right?
Yes.
Which is in 12 verses, and that's the 12 verses of the beginning of Samantabhadra's King of Noble Prayers.
Okay.
So that's a standard. everybody, every lineage, recites that. It's long, that one, the entire. But the short one is the opening 7 branch in 12 verses.
Mhm.
So that's a staple. 21 taras, a staple.
Yeah.
To some degree, maybe Westerners are not so familiar, depending on which community you have connected with. The 35 Buddhas is another staple. So these are staple recitations
Mhm.
that you're likely to encounter.
Yeah, and then there's also the kind of setup of practice where, you generate motivation or something, and bodhicitta and refuge,
Yeah,
and then, lineage or whatever, those kind of also staples of
yeah.
you run
Uh,
into everywhere.
right. Those are structural staples rather than
Right,
content staple,
right.
because then every lineage,
Okay.
Nyingmapas tend to start with, Hong or Yen Yugin the Changsam, Pemagesa Dombola with the 7 line. Then, Kamakagyu starts with something else, and Gelugpa starts with something else.
Yeah.
Dugong Kagyu is the all mother sentient beings, boundless as, limitless as the sky.
Mhm.
So so that one, there's one short, they're called the 3 excellences. The excellence in the beginning is the motivation, the excellence in the middle is the non-grasping, and the excellence at the end is dedication. So again, that's, quite typical.
Right. I'm just casting around here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm doing the same, just
Yeah, I don't really know what everybody else in this group is doing, and so people have to speak up for
right.
themselves, really, because we
Right.
can.
I
Yeah,
mean, probably what you don't need is, you know, another practice
yeah,
to add to your pile.
maybe not. I don't know.
Right? I don't know. I mean, I'm also thinking out loud. I'm not
Yeah, yeah,
making a
no, I think
pronouncement.
that's what happened anyway.
I mean, I loved Cheryl's structural thinking there. I mean, that was really good, Cheryl. I'm like, I haven't had all my coffee this morning. You came from a good point of view.
Thank you.
And cut to the chase.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first one you said, Dr. Lye, I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing that with, I'm gonna probably, like Kentrell, we just did the 7 branches, and we just did tonal, and that's what we did for 4 weeks. And of course, so I, would love to do the 21 Taras.
Mm-hmm.
But then you said, we don't need another practice, but it's a little bit connected with some of the things.
That's a little different. The 21 Towers is not so
Yeah,
much a practice.
yeah. So
Like what I meant is like, like another sadhana with elaborate steps, and first you this, then you that, but
I
like
mean,
21 Taras, 35 Buddhas, and Samantha Bhadras, King of Noble Prayers, those are, straight up recitations. So if anything, it's more like going over the recitation and say, okay, this is what it means here. This is what it's referring to here. This is what it means here.
anyway, yeah, 21 Taras because of all the, the good, um, I just think it's a wonderful practice. It's
Mhm,
energetic and it's,
mhm,
so positive.
mhm.
And
So
it has
21 Taras. Why not?
it has a layout for, how we can live every day.
Uh, there is a preliminary to the 21 Taras that among Kagyuningma's people is usually chanted before the 21 Taras, which is actually the sevenfold puja, uh, different from the more usual sevenfold puja, but
Yeah,
it's chanted at the beginning of 21 Taras.
yeah,
So it could be that, why not?
yeah, it could be that.
And that I think, and now that we're all doing Zoom and this and that, So no reason why this can't be just opened up to everyone who wants to join. Then you have people all over, and I'm sure 21 Taras, yay! Everybody is sign me up,
I don't know about anybody else, but one of the things that I would really be interested in hearing more about, maybe for a more general audience also,
Mhm.
would be the lives of the different bodhisattvas and their paths, the
Mhm.
paths to becoming bodhisattvas.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be good to do that. But I also have a recommendation as well. Miranda Shaw wrote a book, Buddhist Goddesses of India. That's a really good book. Buddhist Goddesses of India by Shaw, last name Shaw. Wait, is it by Miranda Shaw? Yeah, I think so. Hmm.
So, guys, if you don't have any idea what to say right now, what to ask for, that's good to know too. Like, uh, help me out. You know what I mean? It's like we're throwing things around, but
I just,
questions are, anyway, I'll stop.
I just want to add that I'm not familiar with the 7 branched prayer. So I would be curious to learn about that.
We've done it many times.
We have.
Oh yeah, you are. When you see it, you'll know it.
Is that the same as the 7 branched worship extracted?
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm not sure I've done it. I don't think I have.
Well,
I did it. No. Okay.
yeah, that's so yeah, that's part of it can be in the seven, the 21 Taras.
I'm curious, Dr. Lye,
Yeah.
what you sense knowing us might be a really good
Oh, if
topic
only.
to present on.
Oh, if only. I mean, who knows?
I mean, we could also have Milarepa part 2 and just go deeper,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And if that's what we do, then I think the group will be smaller, even though it's virtually. But I think like the 21 Taras with the 7 branch specific to the 21 Taras, that might have an
Yeah.
appeal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that idea myself.
Um,
I like really work to go beyond what he said. But I'm okay interested in. Oh,
can't hear you too well, Casey.
I see you're breaking
you're
up.
breaking up in and out.
Yeah.
might not be sitting close enough.
Yeah.
I said I can't really think too much right at the moment. So I mean, anything we go with is always good. But I'm interested in POA and haven't learned anything about the Sumatra Bhadra, what you were talking about. That's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Not much bad there.
So yeah, we'll look at calendars. We'll look at and in a way, like whatever topic we end up choosing, what you are interested in, you can still remind me because in the end, they're all like always talking about the same thing. So
Yeah.
the same thing. It's like again and again. It's like, it's basically the same thing, it's just repackaged differently.
Right. Well, I just think in all of our meetings with you about the Milarepa songs,
Uh-huh.
you have given us so many amazing teachings. I have pages and pages of notes. The question now then, as we come, is if this what we're considering is how do we put all of that into practice?
Oh, yeah.
Bottom line. And so, how do we put all of that? And he was such a practitioner. But anyway,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, y'all could practice, writing a book together and circulate it. So circulate it amongst yourselves or to new people. Oh, you want to learn more? Here, take this.
just replay the videos. We have the videos.
Yeah, I have asked. So I've been doing this class really since April. In April, for a couple of months, it was every day, 9 to 11. For a month and a half, we did that. Then after that, we switched to 3 times a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 11. We've had over close to 90 plus classes now, and it's going over this 900-page book.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So now somebody said, "Oh, we want to do something." So then I coerced some of them into basically to go through each of this video. So each of the class is around a statement, what we call a Vajra statement. And so these are like, you could say, one-liners that the founder of Drigum Kagyu supposedly uttered throughout his life. His nephew, after his passing, his nephew and also kind of like his Ananda figure, meaning Ananda, the Buddha's faithful attendant, and also the one that heard everything Buddha taught. In the case of Buddha and Ananda, they were cousins. In this case, it was uncle and nephew. So the nephew, kind of remembered all the one-liners that uncles spoke. And then when he was in 7 years of retreat after the passing of the uncle, he wrote down all these statements, and then he organized them into chapters. Chapters not necessarily in the sense of this is a progression of ideas. Chapters in the sense of, if you are familiar with the Dhammapada, Dhammapada is divided into chapters, but the chapters don't make a lot of sense, except that, all the sayings in this chapter has the word flowers. Or all the sayings in this chapter has the word, addresses, foolish behavior, all, because they are from different occasions, throughout the Buddha's life. Okay? So it's not so much thematic progression of ideas, but anyway, so Sherab Jungne, the nephew, put them all together. So anyway, each class is usually one statement. Sometimes one statement over a few classes, sometimes 2 or 3 statements each class. So now I asked them to summarize what I said in each of those classes with regards to the statement. Summarize it in such a way that only if I'm saying anything more than it's already here. And then, I said, give me those notes, and then I will transform them into like 1.5 page. Like, then I'm going to post on the Dribung Dhammakirti website on the
Nice.
Reflect section, reflect section, is really supposed to be like a blog. Then regularly I'll post there what they are working on, and so so one way, really. I mean, when it comes to like practicing Milarepa's, teachings, yeah, that's like lifelong, right?
Yeah.
A more immediate would be like, okay, over here, what points do I remember from, having heard this section? It's a good exercise, I think, to, at least for some of us, and not all of us work well this way, but for some of us, it would be, So specifically, this person working on this text is she's a librarian, and she's a cataloging librarian. So that's like just perfect, that just feeds her. She's a cataloging librarian that is about to retire. She retires at the end of this academic year. So she's transitioning into cataloging something else. As it is, she has cataloged so that every class, she has notes on which statement was covered. And from, the like minute 43, to minute, she's working on that. So that's just right. She's a catalog librarian. So yeah, of course.
You got lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, something like Milarepa's, songs here. Again, the kind of like the gist of it, right? There isn't really something new, after you've read like a third of it. It's just stated differently. And then how many chances can we get to let something sink in, one time Jongsai Kensei was saying how, like, yeah, you repeat, 100,000 of the refuge prayer, because, maybe a handful of times, there's a crack that lets some light comes in, and refuge really comes up. I said, yeah, the other 96,900 and whatever. But the thing is, if you don't carve out some time, to accumulate your 100,000, so to say, no chance at all that it will even come in. This light, no chance at all that this light would even shine. And so, in that sense, we continue to read the songs of Milarepa because, in many ways, right, the way a lot of people read the Bible, it's not like they've never read it before. They read it cover to cover many times, and then depending on what's going on with our lives, new things turn up. The very same words, right?
This may not help our continuing education. You piqued my interest about. You said there's another translation that's not nearly as processed and formatted about Milarepa. And chronicling, and that was like, wow, that'd be nice to hear a sample of that sometime.
It's still available. The book is still in print. It's an earlier translation, also called The 100,000 Songs of Milarepa by Chang, last name Chang. Karma. Karma C.C. Chang, who was a professor at Penn State University until he passed away. Karma, spelled with a G. So it's like Karma. Karma C.C. Chang, who was one of these rare kind of examples or occasions of like a scholar as well as a practitioner. So for a long time, that's the only translation of the, Milarepa, literally 100,000 songs of Milarepa that's available.
Okay.
a little archaic, the language, and here and there, the more kind of explicit things, he kind of like hides them, and
Oh,
yeah, some of Milarepa's, mysterious, like yoga, sexual yoga stuff. It's like, what's going on here? I think you all encountered some of it,
Yeah.
So Chang kind of like hides them away, and
blanket over that part.
yeah, it's like how they right, in the old days, like these things, you publish them in Latin, like, so only well prepared audiences can not debase it. If you took the trouble to learn Latin, then you get to understand what's going on here. So Chang sort of did some of that.
Mick and I were listening to a talk from this fellow who's a Chogyam Trungpa student guy,
Mhm.
and he was talking about Milarepa. And anyway, it's a good talk. We could share the video with people, but
Mm.
it turns out that the tower is still in existence. I had no idea.
I went to see it, but it's a stretch of the word or idea of still in existence.
That's what I wondered. I mean, I have
Yeah.
a picture of it.
Has it been reconstructed or
Oh
something?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, even that there could be such a thing.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's so it's sort of ish, like, yeah, Milarepa's tower ish.
Because it sure looks,
Yeah.
like what
Yeah, if you Google the Milarepa's tower,
Mick is trying to get it up to show you. You could share
oh
it.
yeah, you'll see it, and it's like, yeah. Yeah, we went. So you can do share screen in the bottom of your Zoom screen.
Can't find it.
No, I can't. It's it's the name of it. That's 2600, right?
Yeah.
2600. We are. Sorry. Could be there. Oh, that's downloads. Yeah, we're old. 2600.
There it is. Okay, so he's sending it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So you should be able to open it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And yeah, it looked awfully, wow. That's giant.
Clear and precise.
Yeah.
4 times. I thought there might be some hyperbole going on.
There's some embellishment over time.
Yeah. Does it come through? Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like it's turned into a more like a watchtower fortress.
Yeah. 9 stories tall, though, apparently.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where is it?
It's in the chat.
No, where is the
Oh.
tower?
World.
I got the chat. Where's the tower?
It's in southern Tibet, where Marpa live. Lodra area. It's in the southern Tibet. Yeah. Called Lodra.
It's funny. Can you make us an idea?
And it's like, if you think about it, it's like, oh, that's an inconvenient house to live in. Maybe that's why I kept tearing it down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so there, I think I mentioned this, there are like earlier biographies of Milarepa that is different from the main narrative that we have today. The main narrative that we have today comes from the same person who compiled this text, Zhangnyong Heruka, 100,000 Songs of Milarepa. If you look at the cover, the author given is not Milarepa, it's Zhangnyong Heruka. So Zhangnyong Heruka was a promoter of the biographies of these masters. So he also wrote like the biography of Marpa. he wrote the biography of Milarepa that became widely accepted. If you quickly look at, Changnyeong Heruka, Changnyeong Heruka lived from 1452 to 1507. So Milarepa lived in 1100s. So this is about 300 years later. Changnyeong Heruka's kind of telling of Milarepa's story has become the standard telling. But we have, older records of Milarepa's life, and there it's a little different. There he clearly was educated from young in Dharma topics, and that his father made it a point to have him educated in the Dharma. That he received all sorts of instructions and teachings, and including Mahamudra instructions, and then there was no story actually in there, at least in some of these earlier ones, about evil uncle and aunt. Yeah.
About the murders.
Yeah. So it's a little bit less dramatic. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've always from young, like looked at these stories in a way that is not, that I don't need them to be proven to be literally true or literally untrue. I think stories are told by different cultures, by different people, to point to something else, and therefore, they are powerful for that reason. Because I can, so store, and so these stories are inspiring, not because I necessarily, in my case, think that literally someone like that, but for me they're powerful because from time to time, I'm not saying always, I could imagine being this person and how it feels being this person, whether in despair or in relief. In despair with and the heaviness of it, and relieved when some freedom comes in. Yeah. So where are we? Last week, actually. Let's just look at last week. What did you all read, and if there are questions from there.
241 and 242.
241
Yeah,
and 242.
we were reading the, or was it 240? Yeah, we were reading the
Sure.
I think so. Well,
Yeah, we were talking about that next song that starts at the bottom of 241.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that song.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing sort of a slow read, like we were just reading not through the whole song, but just maybe 4 or 5, little 2-line sections at a time, and then
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this is when the context, right, here is that they were like dakinis appeared, whether everyone could see them or not, it's not exactly very clear here. So these powerful beings, Takinis, appeared, and perform a feast offering to Milarepa and his disciples. And it's in that context that Milarepa sang this song. It's so. So this song is addressed to these Dakinis. That another name for them are the Mamos. Mamos in Sanskrit are matrikas. Matrikas are literally like the mothers. These mothers, these matrikas, are related to disease, actually, in India. So many infectious diseases are associated with these spirit beings that are called mothers. They can release those diseases. They can pull them back. So, like, during this pandemic, there's many lamas also doing the pacifying the mamos practices, as in these mothers are upset. So, however you want to think of it, like Mother Nature is upset after being, kind of treated badly. So they are in turmoil. They are disturbed, and so they are lashing out. So then there's this pacifying of the mamos. So mamos and takinis, there's always a sense of like unpredictable, even if, especially takinis, they are often said to be, they are also Buddhas, right? Buddha principles manifesting as takinis. In a mundane sense, takinis and matrikas are the equivalent of like witches. Not in the friendly Harry Potter way, but in the dangerous Harry Potter sense of witches. Ordinarily. And then with Vajrayana, it says that appearances are deceptive, and one way to communicate that is you have takinis that are that unclear, So many stories of like different Mahasiddhas, including Guru Rinpoche, when they first encounter these takinis are very fearsome and threatening. And once they're able to kind of not get deceived by the appearance, then they turn into wisdom takinis. Likewise, Milarepa, throughout his life, these mothers kind of turn up initially in a threatening way, and then later they kind of change. And so for us is we need to ask, like, did they change, or did his perception of them change, and therefore everything changed, right? So that's one of the bigger lessons here, right? We think they change, but maybe they did not change, It's just his perception of them changed. So anyway, here he's singing to them because they came to perform this feast offering to him, and he sings to them, right? So every two lines ends with cannot compare, right? It's like, this is unsurpassed. This is you cannot compare it to. So the first one, this reliance on confidence in cause and effect, is faith with which ordinary ones cannot compare. So ordinary here, I believe this is the distinction being made is ordinary as in samsaric, extraordinary as in nirvana. So if we're still stuck within dualistic, confused context, then that's ordinary. The extraordinary is the transcendent realization. So here, so the ordinary people's faith is based on, maybe faith in a God, maybe faith in spirits, faith in country, faith in politics, faith in, this and that. And so Milarepa here is saying, like true faith, when we talk about faith, of course, there are so many different dimensions of this faith and this devotion. But the most fundamental, in a way, you can say that all Buddhists, no matter what level of Buddhist practice, on the one hand, or what tradition of Buddhist practice, the most fundamental, not dummies, but the most important faith or confidence that we need to have is the confidence in the unmistaken working of cause and effect. That karma is never mistaken. So specifically, all the joys and miseries that we experience, if we are able to have confidence that there is no mistake here. And this, of course, is slippery, meaning the minute you try to apply this to other people, then you are in kind of dangerous territory. Because it's easy to then say, suck it up, you people. Right? No, you cannot. This is never to be applied to anyone, I think sometimes Buddhists do too much of this, knowingly or unknowingly. It's like, oh, just suck it up, don't complain. This is your karmic fruition. Maybe, as a teacher, if someone tells you, please be my teacher, you can say that to them. And even that, you have to know a skillful time and place and way to say it. Otherwise, it's what we call, blame the victim. And so then quickly, slippery slope, then you spend the rest of the day explaining yourself. So don't apply it to anybody else but ourselves. Like, have I gained reliance on confidence in cause and effect? That's all. Don't worry about have other people gain confidence. Myself, have I gained reliance? Have I gained reliance on this confidence in cause and effect? That is the fundamental faith I need to have. Once, you if you say, yeah, I think I'm pretty good at that already. Oh, then, it's really very good already, very good already, your Dharma practice, if you can have that, if you know you have that, So then what happens is like, once you have that, you no longer go, why me? Neither do you go, like, yeah, because I'm a sinner, so, I deserve this. Yeah. Karma is never a language of deserve or not deserve. It's just simply how things work. Deserve or not deserve is a next layer, right? That you project on. Then a variation of deserve or not deserve is like or don't like, which we naturally do. Deserve or not deserve, we do because we have been taught, right? In this world, there's the justice of God, right? God is a good God, and there's justice ultimately, right? That's our notion of deserve or not deserve, comes from a taught brainwashing. Yeah. But if you strip away all like human labels, then cause and effect is just what is, There's no feelings of good or bad there. Good or bad is necessarily, right? Human, or beings who impute meaning into things. And we do that, And as long as we're doing that, then it's really important to recognize, what do we want or what do we don't want. So we want happiness and we don't want suffering. Or if you want happiness and you don't want suffering, then you know what to do now, cause and effect. You know what to do now doesn't mean I'm not suggesting at all that, therefore it's easy, No, it's not easy, If it's easy, it's not a choice. Um, it's just happening, you don't really have to choose. So it's not easy. It doesn't make it easier either in my experience, but it does make it less stressful in that sense, as in the good and bad that comes, we know two things. One is unmistaken. Two, good and bad my own labels, meaning like, don't like. Good and bad in that sense. I'm not talking about, moral sense. I'm talking about, how we label our experiences, like or don't like. I think I've given this example before, like the times that I've gone to a traditional Chinese massage, called Tuina in Malaysia, I come back like, like with bruises all over the body. I mean, literally. And my family would say, so how was it? I say, well, I made an appointment, I pay $80 for someone to do that to me. I suppose I have to say it was good. If I didn't plan this, and, in the back alley, I got robbed $80 and got beaten up, then that would be bad, but it's about the same bruises. And out of $80 too, So we label, and so we cannot underestimate the power of the labeling, but we can try not to forget who's doing the labeling. And that really gives some like, okay. Then we don't have to be a victim of our own, madness. Staying alone in solitary places is samadhi. So samadhi, this notion of samadhi is sometimes translated into English as like meditative equipoise, like evenness. So samadhi usually means like very ordinarily, people think of it as very advanced meditative states. But here, it's really, it means the mind is even. Even in the sense of, right, stable and unmoving. Not unmoving because it's dead, It's not about deadening. Is that the word? It's not about like dumbing down, right? Your ability to recognize. You recognize it very clearly, but it's the kind of recognition that gives you, weight and strength. So the mind is. Sometimes samadhi has this connotation of like a very narrowly like focused, so that to the exclusion of everything else, the mind is in samadhi. But really, samadhi is talking less about this kind of narrow focused state of mind, but an evenly settled state of mind that doesn't move, you know.
Is this the same thing as equanimity?
Different in the sense that equanimity, in the context of the four immeasurables, is working at evening it out. When you're practicing equanimity, you do consider how friend and foe are both due to labels, you know, right? So you practice equanimity in that way. Yeah.
So-
Equanimity has certain qualities that are similar to samadhi. But the way you achieve samadhi is not through that kind of, you know, like, oh, friend, oh, foe, one taste. The way you achieve samadhi is through training the mind. And shamatha, samadhi, they have same like etymology related. It's about calm abiding. Yeah. So it's related, but it's not the same word at all.
Okay. Mm.
Equanimity is upeksha in Sanskrit. Samadhi is sama is like samadhi, right? Sama is same. It's like equal. So it has relationship with equanimity.
But you said equanimity is a practice,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's a practice that focuses on seeing how these friend and foe are the same.
but it doesn't lead to samadhi.
It doesn't lead to samadhi.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't lead to samadhi. In the four immeasurables, you don't practice equanimity to achieve a state of samadhi. It's just context is different. They're definitely related. Yeah. So here, so what is being contrasted here is then, in a way, you know, Milarepa, what he's doing here is like, so if you look at samadhi, then faith, then view, then meditation, then conduct, then fruition, right? Then excellence and softness, meat and beer. So what's going on here is like he's defining these kind of, especially the first few, these kind of specialized vocabulary with very simple, like straight to the heart definitions. So it says we talk about faith. Then you might think, oh, faith in Tara to save me, or faith in the Guru to make me a Buddha, faith in this, faith in that. He says, let's cut to the chase. Trust cause and effect. Once you trust cause and effect, in a way, you don't even need to pray anymore. So then it says, okay, samadhi, this again, the ordinary sense of samadhi is it's a very advanced state of mind, where the mind is no longer affected by things that are going on around you. Yeah? So Milarepa says, okay, let's cut to the chase. What are we talking about? Stay alone in solitary places. Can you do that? You know, if you cannot do that, then not likely samadhi would arise. If the thought of like staying alone in solitary places, you're like, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Then Milarepa is saying, then don't worry about samadhi. Why don't you go do something else? I mean, really, like not like, you know, being upset that he's saying that. He's just saying, well, practice something else. But if you really want the mind to settle evenly in the way that achieves samadhi, then let's start with making a determination. Like, I don't need, the distractions of New York City. Not like, not even because we're saying anything wrong with New York City, but if your mind has not come yet to a point that says, God, that's all really exhausting, then you're not going to be able to develop samadhi. You have to say, oh yeah, I'm done with that. Been there, done that. No appeal anymore. Then samadhi is possible. And then view, so especially in the Buddhist seminaries, Buddhist Shedra, the view is really important. And yes, there's a time and a place to study texts, compare traditions, the strengths and the weaknesses, the profundity and the lesser profundity of this and that. But for Milarepa, he says, okay, you want to talk about view? Let's get to the heart of the matter. Is your mind resting evenly without perceiver and perceived. Subject and object has collapsed. That is truly when view is present. The more we are caught up in subject object ways of going about our life, then the mind cannot be even. It will have ups and downs. Because some days the subject is very strong, some days the object is very strong, some days the perceiver is very, happy. Sometimes what's perceived is unhappy, and this and that. And as long as that's going on, then there's no view. As in, you are blown around. You cannot see clearly. Then here, and what is this supreme meditation that surpasses the ordinary kinds of meditation? And then his definition of that is, he says, this post-meditation that is free of forgetting, meaning, so you can, emphasize like, oh, you sit, you do your formal practice and it's so good, so, so satisfying. Then there's the post-meditation, like when you leave your cushion, when you leave your meditation room, and if at that point, you're not, you forget, free of forgetting, meaning another way of phrasing that is to maintain mindfulness. Mindfulness, this movement that is very popular these days, has turned into something else. The traditional original definition of mindfulness is very straightforward. It's not forgetting. And here, not forgetting what? Not forgetting the object of meditation. So if in the meditative state, your mind is even keel, so to say, right? Settled. Then when you get up, it becomes unsettled. Then you have not mastered meditation. All you have done is to, curled inside a cocoon.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels really good, when a turtle is threatened, it goes inside. It feels good, like everything is fine, until you end up as turtle soup, then finish. Yeah. So he's saying, they talk a lot about meditation. The real test is, when you get up, is the mind now gone, distracted again? being dragged around again. If that's the case, well, your meditation is so-so. And then conduct, these three usually come together. View, ta, gum, chu, ta, gum, chupa. Ta is tawa, view. Gum is gompa, cultivate, to cultivate, cultivation. So how do you know how well cultivation is going? It's not, like you have hoarded so many things, but that what you have accumulated would actually stay without you needing to guard them all the time. Then conduct, the third, is this mindfulness, right? So not free of forgetting is a way of stating mindfulness. So continuing from there, right? Free of forgetting. So then this mindfulness without perceiver or perceived. Again, this is repeated, the perceiver and the perceive. Or literally, Stagg, the translator, gives us this mindfulness that is not separate. This mindfulness that is not separate is conduct with which ordinary ones cannot compare. So in this case, I like the literal translation better. Because perceiver and perceived, I don't think that's what it is here. Here is the mindfulness that is not separate. What do you mean not separate? Meaning like the mindfulness that is not separate from our speech and our actions. That they are going in the same direction. That they're going together. In that sense, not separate. That is when you know your conduct is good now. So in other words, like right now, if we want to think about, is my conduct in line with, my meditation, which is in line with the view? Then we have list of conduct, right? Oh, the 5 lay vows. Oh, the monks' vows. Oh, the bodhisattva vows. Oh, the tantric samayas. Yeah. So those are like the do's and the don'ts, of which there are many, of which, it's good to know. What's kind of discussed there. But even better is when you have mindfulness not separate from your day-to-day life, then you don't need to go, oh, my bodhisattva vow, oh, my tantric samaya, oh, my hinayana vow. No, when you're mindful, then you naturally do not exceed the boundary set by the vows. Vows are sometimes called boundaries. Just like the notion of retreat is literally boundary. Tsam, in Tibetan, tsam. Tsam is to set a boundary. So you set a boundary and you do not cross, you do not break that boundary. You do not break your tsam. So the English word retreat is actually not a very good word. Retreat has a sense of like jacuzzi and hot tub and, that's what I think of as a retreat. And so these programs that we go to, you call, oh, I'm going to a retreat, right? And your friends just cannot understand why you come back exhausted. Well, you have no idea, the work I was doing there. Yeah, these are, if anything, they should be named intensives, but they call it retreat, Some of these are retreats, and yeah, they're retreats, but then most of the time, I think they're intensives. So your conduct should be based on your should be in line with what you're cultivating, which is meditation. And what are you cultivating? You're cultivating the view. So these three are linked like this. Yeah, you're cultivating the view. What is the view? The view is seeing things as they are. This union of compassion and emptiness is fruition. That's often the fourth one. So by having view, meditation, and conduct, you arrive at fruition. So the true fruition is when compassion and emptiness are unified. And many of us, because of having been in this long enough, or too long, then we naturally think, oh yeah, of course, compassion and emptiness is unified. But that's not really, because if it is truly unified, then hey, it's pretty good. You're close to Buddha. But the reality is more the experience of them not being unified. So we will have moments of experiencing so much compassion that we also feel so much pain. Yeah, so then that's veering off to one side. So they are not unified. And there are many moments where we experience like wisdom, and we have no compassion. So that's more typical of how wisdom and compassion arises, while we're still at the early stages of the path. They arise kind of intermittently in the first place. And when they do arise, they often include the other side. Yeah. And they often arise as like when you have one, you can't have the other. That's more accurate to how we tend to experience these two. So that's why, it's and so don't, underestimate, Milarepa's point here, which is like the true result is when, truly compassion and emptiness can arise simultaneously. So in my other class that I just finished, the three principal aspects of the path, specifically verse 13 of this 14 verse short text by Tsongkhapa, founder of Gelug lineage, Rinpoche Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa wrote in the verse 13, verse 12 actually is where he says, when emptiness and interdependence, meaning wisdom and compassion, arise simultaneously, that is when you have reached the limit of your training, has come into fruition. But as long as they are arising one after the other, then you should know there is more to do. And again, I think if we're honest about it, it's like, yeah, intellectually, I get it, wisdom and compassion, arising together. But in my actual experience of some wisdom arising or some compassion arising, they tend to exclude the other side. So then there's the ordinary fruition. So ordinary fruition is when, sometimes we feel very compassionate, very inspired. Sometimes we feel very wise, But the real fruition is when these two are unified. Then Milarepa goes to, in a way you could say, more mundane needs. clothing, right? Food, beverage, is the next three. This clothing that is free of any feeling of cold. So Milarepa's cotton shawl has softness and excellence with which ordinary ones cannot compare. So yes, it's a reference to his single cotton cloth, but it's also a reference to his practice of inner heat. When the mind turns inwards, then it produces, so to say, a heat that keeps your resources sufficient. But when the mind is pulled around outside, then it's always quote unquote cold. So he's saying, my simple, now he's talking about the actual what people can see, my simple cotton, wrap works more efficiently, than your fancy jacket. Last year, I think I was around this time, I was in Boston. It was very cold. And we noticed that people in Boston, they all wear this one jacket. I don't know, maybe you're in Little Rock, Arkansas, are up to date on what people in Boston are wearing. There's this one jacket that everyone's wearing. The logo is it's a silhouette of seemingly two women sitting with their backs, against each other. And so it's a black silhouette. It's some brand, and something like that. We kept seeing. We were sitting inside, and back when you could sit inside. Remember those days? Back in those days, where you could sit inside in a restaurant, and we saw these people walking by, and they're all wearing this puffy jacket, with that. And to my eyes, it's oh God, that's just why are so many people wearing that? Then when I looked it up, they're like $600-700. Yeah, apparently that's the latest, cool. It's oh, it's okay. That makes me think of Milarepa, the samadhi that's without any hunger. So often it is said, Buddha says he nourishes himself with samadhi. So this is what's going on here. So that's the meat and beer. So it's Milarepa saying to his audience, you don't need meat, you don't need beer. Beer is also a way to keep warmth. Beer for Tibetans, it's not just about intoxication. It's basically another way of taking in barley. Yeah. So it's carbohydrate and protein. It's carbs and protein. It's sustenance. Yeah. So Milarepa, he ate that too, because that's his basic form of sustenance. The nomads give him that as sustenance. So here we're not talking about partying, okay? Meat and beer. Here we're talking about sustenance. So he's saying, the real sustenance is the sustenance of mind, samadhi. So what are we really hungry for? We are hungry for, we are starved of this stability of mind. This drinking from the river of enlightenment. So now this is about quenching thirst, right? Beer is not about quenching thirst. Beer is about carbs. Here, this quenching of thirst is drinking from the river of enlightenment. And this drink can really quench thirst. What we drink is drinking from the salt water of the ocean. Then it will never quench thirst. It will create more thirst. Giving rise to contentment from within is food and wealth with which ordinary ones cannot compare. Then Marpalotsava, his teacher, is a siddha with whom ordinary ones cannot compare. The view of one's mind as the face of the deity is the idam with which ordinary ones cannot compare. So at the end of the day, like idam, deity, what are we talking about? We're talking about seeing one's mind with no obscurations. Somebody recently sent me a nice email talking about how they are enjoying so much reading, not reading in the gathering information way, but reading in a more contemplative practice way. Like this volume called Mind Training, the Great Collection, again, this thick. Then basically saying to me like how, this works better for me, like Lojong mind training, as opposed to, he said, like deity yoga, it's like I have to like activate, what the deity in this exotic form means. And then another layer of getting that feeling to do something for me, So basically saying, I think, the Lojong, which is something like this, the view of one's mind as the face of the deity, So then we might say, this works better for me because this whole deity yidam thing is just. So my response to him is, I said, yeah, this is good. I mean, you're understanding how to work with your mind. You're understanding how to work with your circumstances. And I said, this is good, so you should pay attention to that. But also then I want to offer you this, this stepping back to say, but you're not like being asked to choose one over the other. We should not relate to Dharma practices like that, because sometimes when we get too enthusiastic with something that is working for us, we think like, this is it, But the way we relate to all these different practices, it's not like choosing a partner, that you commit to for life. It's different, This is about having enough tools in your toolbox to know that different jobs sometimes require different tools. No need to swear one tool over the other tool. It's absurd, When I wrote that back, he wrote back and said, okay, so maybe I should do some Vajrasattva. I said, no, that's not what I'm saying. I was like, I'm not telling you have to do Yidam practice. I'm just saying, don't relate to practices as if, being loyal to one means, not having glances of the other. This is not that kind of relationship, So Kyopa Jigten Sumgun, he said, 84,000 dharmas, they all constitute a single path to awakening. Initially, and some people read it in a way that is intimidating. Oh my God, I have to learn 84,000, that's not his point. But sometimes the commentary says, therefore you have to learn all 84,000. It's from this book, And so my point there is like, I think we're missing this point if you think, therefore, you have to learn 84,000. No, it's not about that. It's like, therefore, you relate to all the practices as constituting a single comprehensive way to solving the problem. Once you get that, you don't need to choose. You don't need to put yourself in a position to say, oh, should I practice this? Should I practice that? Oh, am I Nyingma? Am I Kagyu? Am I this? Am I that? Even, am I Buddhist? Am I not Buddhist? All settled now, once you understand. So then I gave the example of like, always remember what the goal is. And then remember the different tools that can help you achieve the goal. The goal never changes or should not change. The tools, be flexible. Don't be rigid. Be flexible, don't be rigid. And especially if you have a coach coaching you, trust the coach. Even if you want to argue with the coach. Yes, you can argue with the coach, but trust the coach.
Well, I'm just curious. I'm curious. What's the goal? I just want to hear what.
Buddha.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing mysterious. Buddha.
I mean, you never know. I wanted to make sure I had it right.
The goal cannot change. Buddha, right? Buddha for the benefit of all. Buddha.
All right.
That's the goal. That never changes.
All right. Yeah? Okay.
So sometimes our allegiances are misplaced.
Yeah.
We misplace it on the tool side, Oh, this tool is so amazing, Knowing how to use the tool, very important. Trusting to use that tool when you are, guided by the coach. Like right now, you need, a Phillips screw driver, and not a flathead. Trusting that is good, but it becomes misguided when you mistake the tool for the goal. Also, someone, obviously this person, it's a recurring theme, like without change, I think he was scarred by some Sangha members telling him that he has broken his refuge vows, like samaya, you've broken your samaya, blah, blah, blah. Why? Because he lights candles in churches. Oh yeah. And this person, obviously, I don't know if people actually even meant it that way. Obviously, it left a deep scar in him, So each time, like when I post something, I don't know if you all saw recently when I was in New York City, I went inside a church, and then he would say something, like, oh, my Vajra siblings have said to me, I have lost my vows, da da da, it's like, boy. So then I recently shared something with Gachen Rinpoche, gave a teaching about it. It was in the context of Tara and how Gachen Rinpoche said, every time I see a portrait, a picture of the Virgin Mary, I think, this must be Tara, How can it be anybody else? This must be Tara. So I sent it to him, I said, okay, look, I sent him also a picture, some of you might have seen, this picture of the Dalai Lama visiting a church, right? And with hands together, looking at a portrait of Madonna and child, I sent him that picture. I said, you're in good company, like you don't. So that's again, it's like the goal, right? Love and compassion. Right? Once you get the essence, you don't need to make those differentiation anymore, I don't mean like, then one day you're a whirling dervish, then the next day you are, doing sweat lodge, then the next day you are doing Shedra, then the next day. Because then, right, you are choosing. You're trying to figure out, which is the one that will complete you. So it's the same with how they say, don't dig 20 wells, Yes, don't dig 20 wells. But to dig one well, you might need more than one tool. Yeah. When you understand that these are all different tools that I have at different points of going down this well, I can't use the same tool, then it becomes a lot easier.
Hey, I've got
Yes.
I've got a question about that. Can we talk
Uh-huh.
about it next time? We have to do the 12-step meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to finish that conversation that you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about having to do all the wells.
Yeah, don't dig 20 wells. It's a good advice generally, because then you'll never get water. But at the same time, you might not be digging 20 wells. You're just digging the same well with 20 tools. So again, the relationship of
I understand. Still,
goal and tools.
I'd still like to talk more about it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we need to go.
yeah. So then, finally, at least in this point, I, the yogi Milarepa, am a meditator with which ordinary ones cannot compare. This is like his confidence. Then this body that is without any sickness is a doctor with which ordinary ones cannot compare. Yeah, this ends that section about without comparison. Again, if you know Milarepa's story, you know for sure he had lots of sickness, pass out, too weak, but his sense of this body is different. It's not literally that there's no sickness. It's sickness does not obstruct him. Cold does not obstruct him. Hunger does not obstruct him. Me, paper cut obstructs me. And even to the point of saying, oh man, paper cut is the worst type of cut. Have you had your hand cut off before? Right? We are so like, oh, paper cut is the worst cut. Yeah, go talk to someone who got their hand lopped off by a machinery, So anyway, we meet whenever. Next Wednesday, next Sunday, probably, I think. I'm not sure. But next Saturday, the next 3 Saturdays, one of my teachers, Kenshin Rinpoche, will be teaching. And if you all have the ability to participate in even one of them, I think it will be very helpful and beneficial. It's not how it's not what Rinpoche says, it's how it's said. If you all have, many of these, older, more experienced teachers, you get the same vibe, it's how they say it, so just watching is a moment of opening. So sign up for that if you have not signed up yet. Information is on Urban Dharma Facebook page. Then the Drigong Dharma Kirti meetings are starting in December on Wednesday night, 7 to 9. It's another context to kind of connect and do practice together. You can tune in on this coming Wednesday. You can tune in on Facebook Urban Dharma, or my, not Urban Dharma, my Facebook, and kind of be a fly on the wall and see what we're doing to get a sense of what it involves. Then later on, if you're like, oh, I think I would like that context to have another context to practice together, then you can certainly join that and get the Zoom information. Or if you already know, oh yeah, I want the Zoom information, just get in touch with me. I'll send it to you. So, Tata.
Thank you very much.
You all be good.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Ta ta ta.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.